On September 23, 2019, Dun Han Chong, one of Ng Wen Tsai's spokespersons, responded to the controversy arising from Tsai's LSE student record. Tsai was not re-registered for 1982–1983 and withdrew from course on November 10, 1982, due to financial difficulties.
那大家看到下面的时间，1982年的11月，蔡总统在指导教授跟校方的核准下，退选了相关的课程。你既然已经符合 PhD 的规定，就不需要再注册申请相关的课程。而后续 LSE 也发证明给蔡总统，申请延长在英国学生签证的期间，让蔡总统在能够完成博士论文的撰写。
Chong disclosed 2 certificates issued by LSE for Tsai to extend her student visa after Tsai withdrew from course on November 10, 1982. In response to a FOIA request, on May 5, 2021, the UK Home Office provided the immigration rules of 1982 and 1983 promulgated under Section 3 of the Immigration Act 1971. The rules prohibited international students from extending student visas without formal registration. Immigration Rule 107 provided that an extension for an appropriate period might be granted if the student produced evidence that he was enrolled for a full-time course of daytime study which meets the requirements for admission as a student, and was able to maintain and accommodate himself without working and without recourse to public funds. Immigration Rule 21 provided that a passenger seeking entry to study in the UK should be admitted, subject to paragraph 13, if he had been accepted for a course of study at a university, granted an entry clearance, and was able to meet the cost of the course and his own maintenance and accommodation without working and without recourse to public funds. According to these rules, for Tsai to extend her student visa, she had to be registered for a full-time course of daytime study with LSE and be able to support herself financially. The documents in the VV file demonstrate how the immigration rules were implemented in the early 1980s. VV's PhD was in the field of international relations. For VV's research in a foreign country, VV submitted her first application form for a certificate of registration on February 23, 1981. 8 different certificates or standard statements were listed in the application form. Number 1 and 3 were certificates to be submitted to the UK Home Office or immigration authorities of foreign countries. They were issued either for confirming registration or stating that the student was expected to re-register for the next session if the certificate was issued towards the end of the session. They indicate that the application form was designed to satisfy the registration requirements of immigration laws in general and the UK Immigration Act 1971 in particular. This is the certificate issued to VV on February 23, 1981, confirming that VV had been registered with LSE since October 1980 and was expected to remain registered at least until June 1982. On August 27, 1981, VV submitted another application form. Date of registration, title, and length of course was the information to be given by LSE in the certificate. The second certificate was issued to VV on August 27, 1981, certifying the registration information and stating that VV was expected to remain registered until at least June 1982. Both certificates were reproduced from a template confirming the registration or expected re-registration to satisfy the registration requirements provided in immigration laws in general or the UK immigration rules in particular. LSE issued the first certificate to Tsai on November 22, 1982, less than 2 weeks after Tsai withdrew from course on November 10, 1982. It was not reproduced from the template confirming the registration or expected re-registration. On the contrary, it certified that Tsai was only registered with LSE from October 1980 until September 1982. It is inconsistent with Tsai's LSE student record. Tsai's registration ended in June 1982. An email from LSE on July 13, 2011, confirms that Tsai's registration only lasted until June 1982. The certificate further certified that Tsai had completed the minimum period of registration required for PhD degree. As established, the minimum period of registration was a term made up by Kevin Haynes, head of the LSE legal team, on December 18, 2020. The term minimum period of registration, or something to that effect, cannot be found in the LSE calendars in the early 1980s. PhD students were required to be registered all the time. The difference was the required fees, a sessional fee for the first 3 years, or a continuation fee thereafter if continued registration was permitted. In addition, the minimum period of registration made up by Haynes was 2 academic years. According to Tsai's LSE student record, it was from October 1980 to June 1982. Not 2 calendar years from October 1980 to September 1982. Coincidentally or not, the letter written by P.C. Kennedy at UOL's Central Registry Academic Division made the same mistake. Kennedy confirmed that the minimum period of study for the PhD degree was 2 calendar years. Furthermore, it stated that Tsai wishes to continue to prepare her thesis for examination on a full-time basis without further formal registration at the school, as it is permitted by the regulations of the University of London. There were no such provisions in the UOL regulations. Even if there were, the immigration rules promulgated under the UK Immigration Act trumped the regulations of the University of London, not vice versa. Tsai needed to extend her student visa twice in 6 to 7 months. The second certificate was issued on June 10, 1983. This time around, Tsai's registration was from October 1980 to November 1982. It certified that Tsai was about to submit her thesis for examination and needed to be in the UK for her PhD exam in about early October for the examination to be completed. The certificate was issued on June 10, 1983, 5 days before Tsai submitted her doctoral thesis on June 15, 1983. Tsai's PhD exam was arranged by UOL, not LSE. Furthermore, since examiners needed at least 6 to 8 weeks to read the thesis, Tsai's PhD exam could not be arranged until she submitted her doctoral thesis for the exam. Based on the LSE application form found in the VV file, it was unlikely that LSE disregarded the UK Immigration Act 1971 and issued those 2 certificates tailored to Tsai's special condition. Furthermore, Tsai was required to support herself financially in order to extend her student visa. It was unlikely that LSE issued these 2 certificates knowing that Tsai terminated her registration early due to financial difficulties. It was unlikely that Tsai's student visa was extended with those 2 certificates and she was required to leave. It is unknown when Tsai left London. According to Tsai's game plan, her overseas student job application registration form, before March 1983, Tsai had already prepared to leave and planned to return to Taiwan to teach in May 1983. However, Tsai did not return to Taiwan in May 1983 as planned. Based on Tsai's entry and exit record released by the National Immigration Agency, her return date was June 30, 1983. In October 2011, Tsai published her autobiography, From Scrambled Eggs with Onions to Her Bento Box, Ing Wen Tsai's Taste of Life. According to her autobiography, in addition to applying for a teaching position in Taiwan, Tsai was traveling around and thinking about teaching at the University of Singapore before she returned to Taiwan on June 30, 1983. After getting my PhD, I had a crazy idea. I wanted to burn my doctoral thesis and never read law books again because I had had enough. I traveled around and thought about teaching at the University of Singapore. I don't know how long it took before my father finally found me in a corner of the world. He called me and told me to return to Taiwan. Tsai in fact traveled around before returning to Taiwan. She flew with China Airlines flight number 003 not from London, but from San Francisco on June 30, 1983. It indicates that Tsai left London much earlier than her planned return date, May 1983, and her actual return date, June 30, 1983, allowing her to travel around and making her father finally found her in a corner of the world. According to Tsai's story in a public speech on March 17, 2011, she did not just think about teaching at the University of Singapore, she was ready to go before returning to Taiwan on June 30, 1983.
所以我就开始说，那我下一步要做什么呢？我已经是一个 doctor 了啊，下面应该做什么？这个我爸爸说，你该回家了吧？啊，可是我不太想回家，所以我就开始去申请学校。那英国的学校那时候讲师第一年的 lecturer，一年大概是5000英镑，5000英镑。但是英国的税很重，它的税大概就抽掉了你1/3，那你现在剩下3000多英镑。3000多英镑大概是几乎是在伦敦是个贫民窟的生活水准啊，差不多是这样子啊。我想说，我要继续做我这种很贫穷的学生生涯嘛，哈。那个时候的新加坡大学也开始在 interview 这个老师，那我也要开始准备要申请这个新加坡大学。那时候新加坡大学的薪水是1万英镑，1万英镑，而且 free housing loan， 要给你免费的 housing loan。那你想你要去吗？我是很想去的。过了好几年，我做了陆委会的主委以后，碰到了李光耀。我跟他讲说，我当年其实很想去新加坡大学教书的。他说：“哦，太可惜了。如果我去新加坡大学念书的话，我就不会是陆委会主委了，可能是新加坡的什么什么了。那好，那新加坡我是准备要去了啦，好。可是我爸也打电话回来说该回家了吧，那我就回家了。那回家就开始教书了。”
These records prove that between November 10, 1982, and June 30, 1983, Tsai was too busy to prepare her thesis for examination on a full-time basis as certified by the first certificate for extending her student visa. As planned, Tsai began teaching at Suzhou University on September 1, 1983. Before her tenure at Suzhou University on September 1, 1983, Tsai sat 2 bars exams and got 2 law licenses.
那年代没有啊，当你检查了你的论文1个月以后，把它交出去的那一刹那，你真的觉得说，我不要再考试了，我也把它扫掉。那可是后来爸说，你毕竟是学法律，应该考张执照吧？好，我又开始我的考试生涯，我又去考了纽约的执照。考完以后，就觉得说好像台湾执照不考也蛮，好像是一个没有完成的事情。后来我又去考了台湾的执照，可是那2张执照就一直挂在我家的墙上，就这样子啊。所以好，我的考试生涯就结束了，那就开始我的教学生涯。
It indicates that Tsai did not need to be in the UK for her PhD exam in about early October for the examination to be completed, as certified by the second certificate for extending her student visa. According to Tsai's own account, between June 30 and September 1, 1983, Tsai was busy preparing and taking her bar exams in New York and Taiwan, not her PhD exam in London. On March 10, 2020, these two certificates issued for Tsai to extend her student visa on November 22, 1982, and June 10, 1983, respectively, were sent to LSE for authentication. On July 23, 2020, Haynes found both certificates in Tsai's LSE student file stored in the LSE archives, pages 101 and 89, respectively, and verified them as authentic. Who wrote these two certificates that were inconsistent with the UK Immigration Act 1971? How and when did these two certificates accidentally land in Tsai's LSE student file stored in the LSE archives? According to the New York State Unified Court System, Tsai was admitted to the New York Bar 4 years later on July 28, 1987. After thorough research, Winifred Tung reported that Tsai never took a bar exam in Taiwan. Tsai's law license in Taiwan was received through a special route in reliance on her teaching experiences at Chengchi University and Suzhou University and reported to the Examination Yuan on June 1996.